What's up, guys? Welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Riddell, and today we have our third episode in Season 2 of the Subscriber Game Analysis series when y'all send me in your own personal games and they have a chance to be analyzed on this channel. Now, today's game comes from my guy Mihao, who played a super fun black line defense game, really brought the heat on the king side, and gave us some fascinating lines in the process. Here he was playing with the black pieces, and white started off with e4, in which case we see Mihao continue with d6 with the Pirc defense, followed by knight f6, putting some pressure in the center of the board. Notice by playing the Pirc before knight f6, this move e5 cannot be played, trying to kick our knight around because we would simply capture this pawn right off the board and have a better game. Here we see the move knight c3, defending the pawn on e4, and now from black, knight bd7 followed by e5, transposing into the lion variation of the Philidor defense, putting some pressure on the centralized pawn. And honestly, in this position, I think it's in white's best interest to maintain the tension in the center. But here we see this move d5. However, in the black lion, whether white plays d5 or not, we're simply going to continue with bishop e7 followed by c6 and queen c7. Very simple game plan. We're starting off with the Pirc. We're bringing our knights to f6 and d7. We're going to expand in the center, and then we're going to play this move c6, which opens up a spot for our queen, and we're going to continue with bishop e7. There's not a whole bunch of different ways that white can stop us from getting this setup. I mean, so far we're just playing very solid chess, and it seems very calm. However, as you guys are going to see, this doesn't last for long. After castling kingside, we're going to start off with our kingside attacking idea with this move h6. Notice if this move bishop h4 is played, we're always going to have g5 options available for the rest of this game. But here we see white take on f6, in which case Mihao continues with bishop takes back. Some of you may be wondering, okay, wait, why did black play the move bishop takes f6? Why not take back with the knight? This seems like a much more natural option. Well, guys, really the main idea of the black lion on the king side of the board is to bring our h-pawn to h6, which by the way has already been done, followed by bringing our pawn to g5 and getting this knight to f4 with a knight f8, g6, followed by f4 maneuver, followed by breaking this game open and trying to checkmate this king as quickly as we possibly can. And that's exactly what we see here after knight e2. Black continues with g5, followed by knight f8 and knight g6, looking to jump into this very active f4 square, which would really put a ton of pressure on the white camp. White tries to stop this with the move g3, and yes, in one sense, white just took away two key squares from this knight, especially the square of f4, and they have somewhat inactivated our knight on g6. But guys, I want to challenge you in your own games. Before you make a move, ask yourselves, okay, yes, I am getting something out of this position. In this position in particular, white is getting something, and that is a less active knight on g6, which currently cannot jump into f4. But guys, every single move we make, when we're getting something, we're also giving something away. And here white simply gave up the square of h3 by playing this g3 move, which we see Mihao take advantage of right away, attacking the rook, practically forcing this rook to move one step over. And guys, now we have full control of these light squares on g2 and f1. Now here from Mihao, we see the move rook g8, which in most cases in the black lion, rook g8 is the way to go, because oftentimes white will have pawns on f2, g2, and h3. Obviously right now we have a bishop on h3, but usually these highlighted squares are where white pawns tend to be playing against the black lion. And in this case, rook g8 is a great idea because we want to break through with g4 and really go after that target on h3 and break open that g-file. But guys, notice in this position, it's not the h-pawn that's the target. It's actually the pawn on g3. So in this position, I'm not going to recommend playing the move rook g8, but instead just trying to break open this h-file because this pawn on g3 is so far exposed. Here I personally really like this idea of h5 trying to play h4. White could try to play a move like queen d2, go and look. I mean, this pawn is no longer defended by the pawn on h6, but in that case, okay, let's just slide our queen over two squares, defending this pawn. And notice now, if white plays a quiet move like rook a d1, I mean, just normal looking chess, we now have g4. Expanding on the king side again, attacking this knight. And notice this knight really can't go anywhere except for the square of h4. And even after this, we're going to take with bishop takes knight. Whole idea being, I mean, if white wants to take our bishop off, we're going to play knight takes h4, knight f3 ideas in the air, and this position is absolutely crushing for black. So y'all, going back to this key position, in which case we played h5 eyeing h4, and then white played queen d2 followed by queen e7. White may see this threat of g4, really just trapping the knight and forcing forcing it to that h4 square. So we may see a move like king h1, right? I mean, just giving this knight that square of g1 to run away to if needed. But guys, in this case, okay, let's play h4. We're going to capture on g3, and our rook is directly aimed towards the opponent's king with great attacking chances for black. So y'all, going back to this position again, we did not see the move h5 and h4 trying to break open this h-file. We instead see the move rook g8 for Michał. Far from a blunder, far from a losing move or a huge mistake, but I just generally think that yes, if there's a pawn on h3, we need to get our rook to g8 to try to break open the g-file. But in this case, I mean, with this pawn on g3, why not keep our rook on h8 and try to open the h-file? But we see this move rook g8, and now white continuing with d takes c6, and now black continuing with the best possible move of b takes c6. Notice, by the way, if we take with our queen, this is bad for two reasons. First off, the squares of d5 and b5 are not well defended anymore, right? And on top of that, and more importantly, this move bishop a4 could be played, and we just lost ourselves our queen. See, y'all, queen takes c6 is just not the good option because of bishop a4, but honestly, in general, take towards the center of the board in Philidor / lion type positions like this. Keep control of these very key central squares, and you're gonna be more than okay. We see white continue with knight c3. Notice, if we took with the queen, on top of losing our queen with bishop a4, this knight would be looking to jump into d5, but now with our pawn on c6, we have those squares currently covered. We see black continue now with queen d7, eyeing the square of g4, and now the very next move, playing knight f4. I actually really like this move for Michał. This knight isn't exactly threatening anything at the moment, but it's extremely active and really making things hard on the white camp. And white can't even take this knight because of this idea of queen g4 check, and queen g2, we would have ourselves a game over. So here white realizes that they cannot capture the knight on f4, and instead plays this move bishop a4. Actually a pretty solid move from white, aiming directly at this queen and our king on e8 once this game breaks open. White here is trying to play b5, open up this diagonal, and we don't want to get our queen pinned to the king on e8. So here the best move is king f8, getting out of this line of fire, and Michał was close. And here plays the move king e7. However, I don't think that this is as good of an option because white now has this idea of knight d5 with check. What on earth is going on? Now, white did not play this move of knight d5, but if they did, I honestly think that white would have been completely winning this position. What is the idea here? Well, if we take back with the knight, if we play knight takes d5, white is able to play e takes d5, again, putting pressure on that c6 pawn. This rook on e1 is going to be activated, and we just lost our key attacking piece on f4. If we don't take with the knight, but instead take with the pawn, well, in that case, okay, white just takes our queen right off the board. And if we move our king to either f8, e8, or d8, white says thank you for this bishop on f6 and attacks our queen, rook, and maybe even more if our king goes back to e8. And if we play a move like king e6 here, well, we have a king on e6, right? I mean, who wants a king on e6? I definitely don't. Here, white could just continue to break things open with a move like c5. If we take on c5, okay, white plays something like queen c2. There's just a ton of attacking ideas here for white, and black is on the brink of losing this game. Going back to this position, guys, as I mentioned, white missed this idea of knight d5 check, but this is a hard move to find, and instead we see this move rook e3, and following rook a b8, white bringing this knight back to the e2 square, putting a little bit of pressure on our knight in f4. And here in this position, we see the move h5. I think it could be argued that black should have just taken on b4 with the rook. I mean, right now, yes, white currently has a lot of pieces attacking our knight, but at the same time, they can't really capture it off, right? I mean, if a move like g takes f4, for example, we're simply going to take back with the g pawn attacking the king and simply about to take the rook with our pawn on the f-file. So this knight really isn't going anywhere. Why not keep our attacking chances on the queen side of the board, have a more active position, and go up a pawn, really putting the pressure on white? But here we don't see the move rook takes b4, but instead this move of h5, allowing white to break through with b5, in which case we see c takes b5, and after bishop takes b5, I personally probably would have played a move like queen c7 or queen c8, but we see this move rook takes b5, and even though this technically may not have been the best move according to the computer, I still like the heart behind it, because the very next move, yes, we go down the exchange, but we now play this move h4, and we really do have a ton of pressure on the white camp here, and white's defensive coordination is very awkward. I think in this position, white needs to play a move like rook c1 or rook c3 and just try to keep the peace On the king side of the board, I mean, even then, we have ideas like king f8, really trying to solidify the safety of our king. We could always play rook h8 and capture on g3, break this file open, and I-square such as h3 with our queen. Needless to say, if white plays this position perfectly, they're going to have the edge, but this is very, very difficult. And in fact, right now we see white make a big mistake with g takes f4. Whole idea here, Michal was able to play g takes f4 with check, as we've mentioned all along, attacking the king. And this move, I mean, just taking on f4 was a big mistake for a number of reasons. After king h1, we could just take the rook on e3 and have a much better game, but we instead see this move queen g4. Michal doesn't care about the rook. He's trying to get a checkmate. Queen d2 with game over as the current threat. And here white has a couple of different ways that they can try to stop it. I mean, knight takes h4 is technically the best option, defending that square of g2. But in that case, I mean, okay, we're just going to take that knight back. Again, we're threatening mate in 1. We're threatening this rook on e3. I mean, no matter how you chop this up, black is going to have the better game. We see this move knight fg1 from white, which currently attacks the bishop on h3. But what this move misses is that the square on g2 is simply unprotected. We as black have full control of the square. We currently could play queen g2 or bishop g2, which is what was played in the game, and we have ourselves a game over. A very nice game by Michal. Thanks for watching today's video. If you'd like to learn more on the theory of the black line defense, click that video to the left. If you'd like to learn more on the theory behind the check Pirc defense, click that video to the right. Leave a comment down below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.